Here we are, natural environment. I could be anywhere. Manufactured reality. Today I want to look at three concepts which are rolled into one. Technology, alternative facts, that oxymoron, alternative facts, and manufactured reality. We've all heard of Chomsky's book and ideas about manufacturing consensus in a Western capitalist society. But we've now moved forward with the introduction of new technology and new platforms to a period where you can formulate manufactured reality to suit your current opinions in a particularly short period of time. Manufactured reality has always been part of the human experience, and it continues to be part of the human experience. For example, in Papua New Guinea, which had over 700 different tribal groups, which had little contact with other tribal groups because of the mountainous nature of much of Papua New Guinea and limited technological innovations in terms of transport. Each tribe manufactured its reality in an attempt to live in that particular situation. Whether that reality was based on facts as they saw them, as far as their natural environment was concerned, or whether it's based on a mixture of fact and myth and opinion, is part and parcel of that manufactured reality. But that manufactured reality only was relevant to that group of people. With the introduction of printing by Gutenberg, what we saw was the ability of mass society to manufacture a reality which reinforced their opinions. For example, in terms of slavery, the manufactured reality was that in the biblical texts that the Bible and God approved of slavery. So we had that manufactured reality, and that manufactured reality held for a number of centuries and obviously continues to hold among certain people of different religious beliefs, as we saw with Islamic State and the introduction of slavery in the 21st century. So manufactured reality is dependent on two things. If you want to create a manufactured reality, and the Nazis were exceptionally good at creating that reality, and also the old Stalinists were good at creating that reality, and that manufactured reality was based on the ability of the state in the 20th century to use alternative facts to create a climate which suited their political, social and cultural agenda. But that got a thrust forward with the introduction of radio and television and film. And the Nazis were apt at propaganda which highlighted the Jews were basically subhuman, and anybody who was not part of the Aryan race was not worthy of existence. But the difference between the 21st century and the 20th century, where they had radio and film, and obviously the power of the state was able to exercise through its monopoly on the use of force, what we saw is it took years, decades, for that manufactured reality to be absorbed into the general population. Let's move fast forward to the 21st century and the manufactured reality that's all around us. Again, it's technological innovations which have allowed human beings to create and use alternative facts in order to create that manufactured reality. But the difference in the 21st century and the 20th century and the 16th century and 100 BC was the speed at which you can bring forward ideas in the community on a mass scale. You don't need massive rallies. You don't need to have a monopoly on the legacy media. What you need is the ability to use platforms on the World Wide Web and the social media, which are able to disseminate those ideas to hundreds of millions of people, millions of followers, tens of millions of followers in an instant. So everything is now being sped up. I mean, before technology, or before Western technology, or technology, let's call it technology, because technology is not just a Western invention, it's been around for a long time. Before the advent of the industrial age and the capitalist age, we had a manufactured reality, but that manufactured reality, to a certain degree, reflected people's environment and their interaction with that environment, and how they manufactured a reality to put forward their opinions and viewpoints and their cultural practices. And these took hundreds of years, thousands of years to develop, and they all developed differently depending on the different geographical region, the different age, the different implements that were available. But as technology became more and more friendly and was able to be used by a greater number of people, we saw the stranglehold which the state and religion had on people's lives loosen. But it loosened in a number of ways. It loosened in the development of the Enlightenment. It also loosened in the development of allowing authoritarian political ideologies, social ideologies, cultural ideologies to dominate greater and greater number of people. But you need three things. You need alternative facts, which are facts which aren't real. I mean, we all accept that, well, most of us accept that E equals mc squared, the speed of light, gravity, and the list goes on and on. Now, obviously, in the 21st century, there are people who don't even accept the concept of evolution. But there are facts and figures which people have discovered and rediscovered in order to explain the situation we find ourselves in. But as we move through the 21st century, we have seen political forces, economic forces, cultural forces being able to use this technology to create manufactured realities which are created to enhance their power and wealth. That's what they're created for. And when we see people talk about the Trump era being the first era of manufactured reality, that's garbage. All during the 21st century we have been manufacturing reality. And we've been manufacturing reality not as individuals, but players who have domination of particular platforms. Let's not forget that all the platforms which have so much influence on so many people, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and the list goes on and on, are privately owned. They are privately owned. And they are there to create profits for their owners and major shareholders. A little bit like the yellow press in the 20th century, which highlighted, which has sensationalised news in order to force people to buy their stuff because it was sensational. It was the same with these platforms. These platforms use the information which you provide, which I am providing right now, in order to maximise their financial returns. So they're not particularly interested if the platform, especially if the platform is owned by the state, as we see in communist China, they're not particularly interested in consequences. If it's owned by a capitalist entity, it's about maximising profits. So if you have people on these platforms like Trump who are manufacturing a reality by using fake facts, as if there are such a thing as a fake fact, to build that manufactured reality, as long as they're making a profit, they don't care. And if the state is in control of the apparatus, as we saw during the Nazi era where they controlled film and radio, then they can use their total control of that platform and use, alternative facts to create a manufactured reality which reinforces their opinions, but most importantly of all, reinforces their ability to exercise power over people. And that's what manufactured reality is about in the 21st century. It's about using platforms which have an impact on millions, if not tens of millions of people instantaneously, by using alternative facts, facts which don't exist, facts which are made up, facts which are cobbled together, which may have an element of truth in them, in order to ensure they are continually able to exercise power. So it is a real issue, and the demise of Trump is not the end of manufactured reality. Trump is a minnow, or was a minnow, in the ability of ruling classes around the world, both economically and politically, to create a reality in the minds of people in order to manufacture conditions which reinforce their opinions and reinforce their power and ensure that they continue to concentrate wealth in their power. In Australia, a classical example of manufactured reality is the reality that this country was not inhabited terra nullius when it was colonised in 1788. And we have continued to accept the reality of the manufactured reality of terra nullius, despite the High Court in 1992, on the 3rd of June 1992, finding that Indigenous Australians had rights to land in law because of the prior occupation of this land, and which we continue to see today. A manufactured reality that this land wasn't stolen, there is no treaty, there is no compensation, there is minimal discussion towards a treaty. So this is a manufactured reality which cocoons us in this country. It is part and parcel of our reality, but it was based on alternative facts. It was based on the alternative fact there was no resistance to colonisation, that Indigenous Australians, were nomads and they had no fixed geographical areas they lived in. It was based on the reality, facts, alternative facts, that they had no technological innovations, no spiritual background, that basically they were little more than animals. So again, we see how this manufactured reality, which was manufactured over centuries, continues to have a hold on some people in this country. But the difference today is that within a very short period of time, within the period of months, we can see a manufactured reality being created which has real consequences on society, real consequences on people like us, who think that through rational discussion and rational thought, and by using facts, we can actually change people's opinions. And the reality is, those people who are at using these new platforms, who own these new platforms, who control these new platforms, don't need reason, they don't need logic, they don't need facts, they don't even need reality. All they need is the ability to have enough alternative facts to create this new manufactured reality. So it's important to remember that manufactured reality is part and parcel of human existence. It has been with us from the very beginning. And to a significant degree, religious belief is part of that manufactured reality. It's based on belief, not facts, not reason, but belief. So it is part and parcel of the human experience. And what we've seen with the introduction of mass technology, initially printing, then radio, then film, then television, and now the World Wide Web, we have seen the ability of people who exercise power and have wealth to be able to manipulate and use hundreds of millions of people to push their agenda at the expense of the rest of us. So it's something that we need to remember, and we need to be able to expose for what it is. Because if we don't, the atrocities we saw when the Hutu massacred the Tutsis in the 1990s through continuous radio broadcast about that the Tutsi were basically worthless and needed to be exterminated. We saw 900,000, almost a million, exterminated in the most brutal fashion in the 1990s, within 6 to 8 weeks. As we saw during the Second World War, as we saw with the camps in Stalinist Russia, as we saw in Pol Pot. But the difference today is it doesn't take years to create that alternative reality. It doesn't take years to use alternative facts to manufacture a reality to suit their agenda. It can be done in the matter of weeks, if not months. And that's why it's important that these large platforms, which are owned by 3 or 4 individuals and organisations, need to be broken down. The decentralisation of technology is an exceptionally important way via which we can decrease the ability of those who currently exercise power or wish to exercise power, and those who concentrate wealth in their hands. We can decrease their ability to determine the social, cultural and political agenda of societies around the world. Ultimately, the future is in our hands, not their hands. But if we allow them to continue to manufacture facts, to manufacture reality to suit them, we are the poorer for it. As individuals, as families, as nation states, and as society in general.